If you guys are not subscribed to Lion Pride Arm Wrestling, make sure to go check them out because they've been putting out some really great stuff lately. But one of the podcasts they just recently came out with was another podcast with Auden Larratt, and in this video, Auden explains from his perspective exactly what took place in the Devin versus Levon match, and I found it to be super interesting. We've already heard a lot of explanations as to why round 1 seemed to be so close, but the other rounds didn't seem to be close at all, but Auden gives a bit of an alternative view that I think makes quite a bit more sense. Let's take a listen to the clip.
Round 1, Levon wanted to keep his hand. He doesn't quite hit the same way as the rest of the rounds. Like he hit and then kind of stops himself because his hand started to go. After that round, he's like, whatever. So he's just hitting finish. And he was just too much.
So probably the opinion on this that I've heard the very most is that the levels between Devin and Levon actually were very, very close in that first round, but once Levon transitioned to that flop press, he stretched Devin's bicep out, he stretched his elbow flexor out, so after this, Devin had nothing left in the following rounds. So the first round actually was very close, but in rounds 2 through 4, Devin was just totally gassed out, and that's why Levon was pinning him so easily. But Auden isn't really saying that. Auden is saying that this is more of a technical thing. The reason that the first round looked so close, according to Auden, is that Levon wasn't really sure how much pressure he was going to apply into the match yet, because he could tell that if he went full force, he was going to lose his wrist, and initially, he was trying everything he could to keep his wrist flexion. He didn't want to lose any fundamental pressure off the bat. But what happened in rounds 2 through 3, once he had already flop pressed and surrendered his wrist, is he just didn't really care anymore, and he just decided to hit toward the pad, regardless of what happened to his wrist. So in other words, Levon Zirakashvili used a Todd roll, and that makes me very happy. If you guys don't know, a Todd roll is basically just a top roll with your wrist cracked back. Of course, it's made famous by Todd Hutchings. And if you go and watch rounds 2 through 4 again, if you look at the replay, you'll see that Levon's wrist actually is cracked back in all of those rounds. So the limiting factor is not that Devin was failing to crack Levon's wrist back anymore, it was just that Levon wasn't holding his own strength back in an effort to maintain his wrist, but rather he just went ahead and surged toward the pin pad regardless of what happened to his wrist. And to me, this is a better explanation of exactly why Levon seemed so dominant in rounds 2 through 4, even though the match appeared to be very close in round 1. A match between Devin and Levon will always be super close for however long Levon decides to fight for his wrist. But as soon as he just goes ahead and surrenders that wrist, then it's not going to be close because the arm power between Devin and Levon is not close. The hand and wrist is close, but the arm is not. And I think that this is super cool because most middleweight pullers, most pullers in Todd Hutchings' class can't even do this move. Most people can't even do this move, period. If you guys have never tried to do a Todd roll before, it's actually very difficult and it feels super awkward unless you've practiced it quite a bit. But Levon was able to do this very smoothly, and it didn't look like it fazed him at all. It didn't even look like he really lost any power as compared to his normal hits. So overall, I'm super impressed with Levon that he was able to do this, that he was able to use the Todd roll, and I think that's super cool as it is one of my favorite moves in the sport. And I think that this is also the reason that in the future, it's going to be incredibly difficult for Devin to ever do anything for Levon, because even if he does crack that wrist, Levon just has a Todd roll as his backup move, and I don't think that Devin has an answer to the Todd roll. So let me know what you guys think about this, but I think that the explanation Auden gave makes a lot of sense, and I tend to think that it's correct. But I am also extremely biased because I love Todd Hutchings.